Hey there, aspiring guitarists. Today I'm going to talk about the term classical guitar because that's kind of all over the place and it means a bunch of different things to a lot of different people. And so I want to talk about that. Does classical guitar mean this headstock? Does it mean nylon strings? Does it mean a saddle that has to be where the strings are tied? Have I violated the classical guitar because this is an electric one from Godin, a very well-known classical electric guitar maker? Or how about Cordoba? Look at this one. This is a little mini that people refer to as a classical guitar because it has the bridge, has the nylon strings, but whoa, the headstock's different. So what's a classical guitar? Do I have to hold it like this? Classical guitar has been, I don't know that I want to use the word thrown around, but I kind of do. Sometimes we refer to it as just fingerpicking. But there's more to it than that too. Classical guitar goes all the way back centuries. And from classical guitar, we get a lot of things that we use in rock guitar, folk, all kind of genres. Scales. Scales started back with classical guitar technique and theory. In fact, I still think great resources. This is Hal Leonard. When I was growing up, it was Mel Bay. This is a very good book to introduce. It's not expensive. You can get it on Amazon, Musician's Friend. You can get it all over the place. But not to rely on a book, but let's just use their definition. What is a classical guitar? And it says, learning to play the classical guitar does not necessarily mean playing classical music. It does mean learning to play the guitar in the classical tradition that has been developed for centuries and continues to evolve. As a classical guitar student, you will learn, this is important, to play solo guitar music with melody and accompaniment simultaneously, just as a solo pianist would play. You will learn the techniques to play simple accompaniment parts or more complex music with 2, 3, or 4 distinct melodies or parts, key part again, at the same time, allowing you to play music of the great master composers as well as many other styles. It is the approach, not the music, which makes one a classical guitarist. Last sentence. Most exciting about studying the classical guitar is that you are using the methods and techniques that have been refined over centuries by some of the greatest guitarists who have ever lived. And that's very true. This was the book again, Hal Leonard. So let's take that into some practical theory. Sometimes in rock music, you'll hear some of these guitar teachers, like they'll talk about arpeggios. And so, in a strictest sense, an arpeggio it's a chord that you're playing one note at a time. So, and then you'll hear other things. For instance, when we look at guitar tab, or even if we take a music clef with the Every Good Boy Does Fine, we can find where those notes are on the piano, and we can find where those notes are on the guitar. Some are above the staff, some below. But also in classical music, you notice that when we do a tab, they'll mark what fingers to use with the left hand. 1, 2, 3. and sometimes they'll put 4 or pinky. In classical music, you'll also see it scored with what's known as PIMA, P-I-M-A. And I'm not going to get into that. There's actually some plectrum, but anyway, like P is the thumb. And so why are they doing that? Well, because in tablature, you've got the left fretting hand doing things over here, doing chords, touching notes. But in classical music and fingerstyle, you also have the right hand doing fingerstyle picking, and it will show you when to use the P, the thumb, the I for index, M for middle, and then A for what we often call the ring finger on the right hand. So that's, you'll often see when you get into classical music notation. Now that doesn't mean they don't strum. They do strum. I mean, you know, in classical music, you will see them very often. They'll be finger picking P, I, M, A. And while they're doing that, they're hitting a note over here at the same time. So you got two things going on at once. Remember, in a chord, we make the chord and we strum. And they strum in classical music as well. They use chords, but many times they'll break down a chord, and that's where they're doing the arpeggios, the scales. But you've got two things going on at the same time, which is why it says you're actually accompanying yourself. So over here, you have one part going on, and over here you have another part going on. You're a one-man band. So it's sad to see that people on both sides will snub their nose at the term classical guitar or classical guitarist. But you know, I'm by no means an accomplished classical guitarist, by no means, but I am a fingerstyle picker. So I dabble at classical guitar, and I love fingerstyle picking, and I love not just making a chord while I fingerstyle, but trying to learn to make those two things happen at once. So classical guitar is a beautiful thing. I don't like it when a trained classical guitarist snubs his nose at a rock guitarist, because we're all learning from each other. It's a technique, it's an approach. But it has been at the heart of the guitar, learning. Whether that learning spun off into rock and power chords or 5 chords or whatever you want to call it, classical music is a beautiful thing. And it's not defined by nylon strings, a bridge, or a headstock that in this one people go, that ain't right. You know, you got to have the right headstock. You know, that's not what classical guitar is about. That is a instrument used in classical guitar technique. I love classical guitar. In the background, that is Sirius XM's extra channel that you can't get in the car, and it's called Acoustic Guitar Instrumentals. They play a lot of classical music, and they blend in some folk and pop, but it's the guitar. That's all it is. So classical music is a beautiful thing, whether you want to be a rock guitarist, a pop guitarist, or whatever. But I just wanted to give you a brief description of what classical guitar is. And this is a great book to buy. It's not very expensive. Even if you're not going to pursue classical guitar, if you stop and look at what it's teaching, it'll give you a breakdown of what's going on, and you'll see a lot of similarities in some of the scales, chords, chord progressions. Remember, all this builds that we're learning now off of centuries of classical guitar. So, hey, I hope your guitar journey is inspiring, blessed, and as always, happy picking.